Tonight on News 5 Live, more than 150 purported gang members are released from the Belize Central Prison and free to move in the city. But what does this mean for citizen security amid COVID-19 crisis? More than 100 tests conducted this week and COVID-19 cases remain at 18. National Security Minister Michael Perfit says that police are well within the scope of their legal responsibility to regulate congestion during relief activities, including pantry. Over 100 fires were recorded on a single day this week. These fires are impacting health and the environment and causes thick smog in Belmopan and the Cayo district. And the Belize Red Cross gets a huge boost from the Lord Ashcroft relief. Details of these stories and much more coming up in tonight's newscast. Good evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Friday, April 17th. I am Sabrina Daly. On Thursday night, more than 140 persons suspected of being members of gangs were released from the Belize Central Prison after a month of incarceration. At the time of their arrests in March, the police imposed a state of emergency in the south side of the city to restrict movements due to a spike in crime. Within only a few days, there were 15 shooting incidents, 7 of which were fatal. So now that they are out, there is a national state of emergency. But the lingering question is about personal security. News 5's Isani Caetano reports.
After a month on lockdown at the Belize Central Prison, close to 140 men presumed to be actively involved with various inner-city gangs have been released into society. Freedom, however, comes at a critical time since the entire country remains under a state of emergency amid the coronavirus crisis. On March 18th, a citywide sweep resulted in the detention of dozens of men from 8 neighborhoods on the south side. Their incarceration was overseen by Virgilio Murillo, Chief Executive Officer of the Belize Central Prison.
First of all, I want to start off by saying that the state of emergency that was declared back in March expired yesterday, and I did not receive any further order or warrant to continue keeping these guys, so we had to liaise with the police and coordinate the police to get them out of the prison by the close of business day yesterday, and that happened.
In the 48 hours that preceded the law enforcement offensive, gun violence went virtually unabated, resulting in a number of fatalities and injuries. Government responded to the surge in gang-related homicides by targeting these individuals and putting them away while preparing for the imminent arrival of COVID-19 in Belize.
At the expiration of the 1 month, as the Minister has said, we will be making representation to the government and ask for extension, because we believe that with all that is about to happen with the COVID-19, we cannot have the ICU in Belize City filled with gangsters with gunshot injury. Then when your grandmother or your grandfather get corona and need the ICU, there'll be no space for them. It cannot work.
That period has since elapsed, and while only 18 cases of COVID-19 have been recorded, there are serious concerns about citizen security in the middle of this public health disaster.
We had indicated when we had the press conference about a month ago that we were very serious about what we were doing, and that if necessary, we would extend it. We believe that we have enough control over the situation that it was not necessary to extend it, and the people could be released, and they were released yesterday. However, make no mistake about it. If it turns out that we don't have the control that we think we have, they will go right back almost immediately. The legislation has already been drawn up. The boundaries have already been demarcated, and if they as much as blink round, they will go right back up. Their behavior whilst they were up there was pretty good. There were no incidents while they were detained. They were spoken to regularly by the CYDP and other people, and they claim to understand that what we are doing is necessary. They claim to understand that their actions will not be tolerated by the general public, and so they are ready to go back into the society and be law-abiding citizens.
While they reportedly got along well with each other during their detention, was there any accord involving a ceasefire upon their release from prison?
With respect to any formal agreement, what I can tell you is that since they came to the prison, we have held several sessions with all of them, particularly with the leadership of the various gangs. And we somehow saw where they, for the most part, at the end of the day, there seemed to have been a level of mutual respect and understanding for each other, regardless of what color they are affiliated with and what gangs they are affiliated with. In the prison, they were quite well behaved, I must tell you. A few of them, I will admit, did try to violate prison rules, and they were dealt with accordingly, disciplinarily, that is.
In evaluating the outcome of their confinement, it was collectively agreed that the gang members will now be given an opportunity to prove themselves by flying the straight and narrow. That notwithstanding, the focus of law enforcement remains on them during the remainder of the national state of emergency.
Based on the different exchanges and discussions that we had, we decided then to have them prove themselves. But like I said, and I repeat, they are on a very, very short leash. Not only that, we are in a state of emergency, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and so an extra watchful eye will be put on them. And as they blink wrong, like I said, they will go back to prison. We give them about another week or so, and we are prepared to do it by the end of next week if we have to, or by Monday if we have to send them right back to prison under a new state of emergency.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isana Cayetano.
According to Prime Minister Dean Barrow in a recorded statement, Belize is acquiring testing kits from the Cayman Islands. The Cayman Islands has found itself with a surplus of the kits and is also selling to Barbados and Bermuda. But here's the situation. Media reports from the Cayman Islands say that the testing kits are from South Korea. According to one report, quote, the Cayman Islands government has sold the outstanding shipment of 35,000 COVID-19 test kits to Bermuda after receiving a consignment last week of 165,000 from South Korea, which is more than enough for the public health and authorities to ramp up testing here to the levels needed, unquote. Another reported that government of Barbados has also purchased 20,000 test kits from the Cayman Islands. Prime Minister Mia Mottley made the announcement during her April 11th address to the nation. Now, as you know, Belize was the only country in Central America that rejected a donation of testing kits from South Korea. We were told they were incompatible and technicians were not trained to use the kits. Instead, we were using kits approved by the CDC. But it seems that we are now paying for kits from South Korea, which we rejected and were getting free through a donation to Sika. The last confirmed positive COVID cases were reported on Monday. Since then, there has been no new cases, which means that going into the weekend, the number of confirmed cases stands at 18, including 2 deaths. According to the Ministry of Health infographics, the number of persons tested as of today stands at 730. It represents an increase of 131 since Monday. The figures show that the results of 45 tests are pending, and as we said, there are no new cases since Monday. All this week, we've been reporting on the economic impact of COVID-19 on agro-productive sectors. As you've heard earlier this week, the Spanish Lookout community is facing a number of challenges. One sector is the dairy production. The state of emergency has placed restrictions on movements of people, but the milking of cows is a daily matter. We'll tell you more through this story with Belize's largest dairy producer, Western Dairies.
Western Dairies is the leading dairy producer in Belize. They make a number of dairy products, from milk to butter to cheese and yogurts. But this dairy producer is facing a tough time when it comes to distribution. Sales are down significantly during what should have been their peak season.
The dairy side of it, our sales obviously have dropped a lot since a lot of stores are closed, restaurants are closed, resorts are closed. So that affects the amount of dairy products that we are able to sell. This is like our peak time of the year as far as for sales. I mean, it's a hot time of the year, so our ice creams, ideals, all that stuff really sells a lot, including a lot of tourists that would still normally be here at the resorts, which helps us with our sour creams and cheeses and stuff as well. Right now, our biggest thing is to be able to get it out there to the people that need it, right? With the limited hours of operation and things like that, it's more it's not that we don't have, right? I mean, we have a surplus right now. If the problem, I guess, where it comes down to is if stores are not open enough that people can get it, and the distribution part is what's hard right now.
And because products are not selling like before, the Western Dairies has a surplus of food items. Some of those products have short shelf life, and this affects production for a product like fresh cow milk.
We have, in that regard, we have had to reduce the amount of fresh milk we pack and stuff like that. Cheese is a little bit different. We can pack more and store it for a little while. If we have cooler space, then that is fine. Then we can. Cheese is not such a short shelf life.
When a large producer like Western Dairies isn't selling off all its products, the impact trickles down to the dairy farmers.
From the farmer side of it, it is very tough because they are getting. We have already reduced the price what we pay for the milk to them, and feed prices obviously for the cattle has not gone down. And so that is a huge concern on their side.
Now, as Western Dairies, are you taking maybe less milk than you normally would from them?
Yes. Yeah, we normally would take more milk. We are limiting some of the milk, or if they bring above a certain amount, then they don't get paid for the milk.
What do they do in these cases where they have all of this surplus milk on their hands that the Western Dairy is not able to purchase?
There would be, I guess, there's farmers that do it different. Some try to help out, like get some neighbors to come and get it for a cheaper price and help them out in that way. Some do make their own cheese at home, maybe try to be able to use up the milk in that way. So there's different farmers are trying to do different things to try to use it up, to limit the amount that has to be dumped.
And while sales is one issue they have to contend with, Friesen says that dairy farmers are faced with another hurdle when it comes to the restrictions on movement on Sundays.
With dairy farmers, they have to milk their cows 7 days a week, twice a day at least.
If cows are not milked on time and these things are not done within, its proper cycles, how does that affect the whole process?
Well, that doesn't work with milking cows. If you would skip them one day and then try to milk them again, I mean, the cows get sick. It hurts their productive life. It is definitely not a thing that's even a question to be able to be done. Like that, you cannot skip milking a day and then try to milk them again. That is not practical at all. And of course, the agriculture ministers would say yes. Of course, guys have to be able to milk their cows, and they understand it. But I feel that there is obviously from what I get from the public is there's police officers that do not know that cows need to be milked twice a day and on a Sunday as well, and it creates an issue that way.
Friesen says that they've been trying to lobby for some arrangement for dairy farmers, but they're yet to get a response about how they can address the Sunday restrictions. Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
Residents in western Belize, particularly in Belmopan and San Ignacio and Santa Elena, have been complaining about smog that has been lingering, going on for almost 2 weeks. They say a number of fires have been burning and the smoke is tough to deal with. While the Forest Department agrees and says that too many illegal fires have been burning and are cause for great concern. During this pandemic, this is even more concerning for those who are COVID-19 positive because of the respiratory issues. Today we spoke with Forest Officer Raul Chun about this growing fire problem. Here's a story.
This is what it looks like in Belmopan today, smog sitting over the capital city. It can be seen further west, but this has been accumulating for the past weeks. This morning, air quality tools showed that the air was not suitable for breathing in parts of the country. But why is this? Well, the Forestry Department says that many fires have been burning across the country, with high numbers recorded in the Cayo, Orange Walk, and Toledo districts. The Forestry Department says that over 100 fires were recorded on a single day this month.
And we're seeing a lot of fires in Belize, actually in unprecedented numbers. Like I shared with you a map showing the heat points that we have registered since the start of this year. And so I think on April 9th, we had registered a total of 117 points. And just this week, I think April 15th, we registered or detected a total of 185 heat points in Belize as it relates to agricultural fires. The Forest Department is not issuing any burn permits as it relates to fires that are used as a management tool in the management of forests. So really, all these fires that are actually ongoing are what we would consider illegal and that it should not be happening.
The fire season in Belize is from January 15th to June 15th. It's dry season right now that's seeing extreme temperatures, and as the country experiences drought conditions, it's the perfect setup for fires to go wild and into forested areas. Forest Officer Raul Chun says that people are starting fires for different reasons. Many of these fires go uncontrolled because of poor fire management practices.
People are actually, I would imagine, are burning for agricultural activities, and we suspect that some of the fires actually are basically started by hunters and also people that that are engaged in burning the yard waste or solid waste, and perhaps these practices are not being done with preventative measures. So we have probably fires escaping and getting into forested areas.
A high number of fires burning across the country pose serious risks, and when these fires go uncontrolled, the hazards to the public and the wider environment increase.
Really, it doesn't take much for the fire to actually spread and getting into private properties, into protected areas, and can threaten buildings, can threaten your agricultural produce, and also threaten the natural wildlife and the natural areas.
From the high number of recorded fires, it says that many people are still moving around and not adhering to the state of emergency regulations. And a likely reason is because they're taking advantage of the fact that private and public sector management personnel are not on the ground because of the quarantine.
The Forest Department is not listed as an entity that provides essential service. And so we believe that is what is actually happening at this time, that people are taking advantage of the absence of the personnel that normally deals with fires. And so we are trying to coordinate with the other law enforcement agencies that are actually operational to try to have them address these environmental issues.
The Forestry Department now calls on the public to cease and desist the lighting of fires. We were made to understand that by early next week, regulations will be put in place to address this growing problem. Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
And there will be much more news after the break.
Hello, friends. I'm Dr.
The Red Cross Association is well known all over the world for its expertise in organizing food distribution and other relief efforts in times of disasters. On Thursday, the Belize branch benefited from a significant donation of $500,000 from the Lord Ashcroft COVID-19 Relief Fund, which is being administered by the Belize Bank. The donation was made in the memory of Lord Ashcroft's mother, Renee Ashcroft, who in 1955 was part of a team of Red Cross volunteers serving up north in Corozal. At the time, the country was devastated by Hurricane Janet. On receiving the donation, the Belize Red Cross made an appeal for volunteers to join the organization. Lord Ashcroft has donated $10 million to the national efforts to assist families at this very difficult time of the COVID-19. So far, the Belize Police Department has also received grants as part of the larger donation. In addressing the nation during a televised statement on Thursday evening, Prime Minister Dean Barrow touched on a number of issues as they relate to the coronavirus catastrophe. Among those concerns is the dire economic and social impact of COVID-19 on the country. Despite approving a fiscal budget for the financial year 2020, Belize's economy has experienced a shock unlike any previous natural disaster, and revenue in the government coffers is only at a trickle.
I turn now to the socio-economic aspect of what is proving to be our long nightfall. Our principal efforts here are twofold: to disburse all needed unemployment relief funds and to roll out an emergency countrywide food assistance program. We're in the middle of an economic shock, the likes of which the modern world, let alone our beloved Belize, has never seen. Business activity has come almost to a halt. People have lost their jobs and livelihood, and revenue sources have dried up. The tax base has utterly eroded, and we are terribly short of money. We are without coin of the realm, and it is not possible to collect anything but a trickle. Still, government must operate and the country must be kept going. We have to find salaries, especially for our doctors and nurses, our security forces, immigration and customs officers, and all the public servants that maintain the administration. We must keep the lights on and the water flowing. We must pay for the PPEs and the testing kits and the Cuban brigade that has left their homeland to assist us. Above all, we must help our people. We must feed our people.
In respect of details of government's relief assistance, PM Barrow reminded that everything his administration is doing to get the country through this crisis is with a view to helping everyone, regardless of political affiliation.
As of today, then, 23,264 persons have already been approved for unemployment relief and their payments sent to their banks. Ultimately, this particular safety net will cover upwards of 50,000 persons. Likewise, 4,000 households for a total of 17,000 beneficiaries have received food baskets. This first tranche of that particular program is costing government $12 million. With the $75 million borrowed from the Central Bank of Belize, we are able to help the unemployed for at least the next 7 months. Furthermore, the pace of disbursements will continue to accelerate as we straighten out the processing kinks. The monies from the international financial institutions are taking some time to reach us, but they are coming. Thus, we expect at least $30 million more for food assistance, and there should be $100 million to augment our already existing Boost program. I close by making one other promise to you. All that we do is without regard to color, red or blue. No politician of any stripe will get hands on any GOB money, whether for unemployment relief or for food distribution. This is the way we have begun, and this is the way we will continue.
Long lines are forming at centers where the pantry program is being distributed. This morning it turned ugly when police disrupted the pantry dispersed by the Salvation Army. But at other centers in the city, the flow was better organized. Here's News 5's Dwayne Moody.
Thousands of Belizeans disenfranchised by COVID-19 have applied for the unemployment relief program by the government. At last count, over 23,000 applications have been approved, but that represents only about 35% of the number of applicants. An indication for what has been happening for about a week now is the large number of persons gathered at various locations across the city trying to access pantry programs. Most have not been practicing social distancing, but this morning one program was shut down by police, even as the Minister of Human Development, Anthony Boots Martinez, intervened. Today, National Security Minister and Attorney General Michael Perfeet says that under the Emergency Powers Regulation, the police had the authority to do so.
The national security apparatus, especially the police and BDF on the ground in the streets, and especially in Belize City, they have every right to make sure that even though we're providing the necessities for the people, they have every right to make sure that whilst we are providing that, law and order is being maintained, especially the social distancing protocols. Those have to be in place. So if you have a number of people turning up at a place where food is being distributed, the police have every right to go there and say, maintain the 3 feet distance, maintain a line, keep a safe distance from each other. They have every right to enforce that. And the past couple of days, when people were being unruly, we even had to say, listen, put it on pause, shut it down for 5 or 10 minutes, let people get it and start to behave in an orderly fashion. And once they did that and understood that even though they're getting the food, they have to do so in an orderly fashion, then it was resumed. But remember, we are in a national emergency. We are trying to battle a pandemic. So while giving out food and stuff like that is, it's just basic and so essential to our very survival, we also have to do that whilst maintaining the different protocols for COVID-19.
Elsewhere across the city, residents formed queues in front of supermarkets to collect pantry assistance. After applying online, they received calls and were given 2 codes, as well as the name and addresses of designated stores where they should pick up the groceries. Wellworth on Albert Street and Twin Supermarket on St. Thomas Street are on the list. Residents say that they are grateful even for the basics during a crisis.
They give me a call, and we call them. So we work together and then get the teamwork start move. Right? Then call me, I call them, and then I'm here now.
Okay, I'm understanding that they gave you 2 numbers that you're supposed to bring here to the store, right?
That's correct. So they give me numbers. So that's the understanding I have here.
Now, talk to us about how important it is at this time to receive groceries, how it will help you and your family.
Yes, because then they got me locked up. Locked up without food. If it's in a jail, they feed you. And they lock me up, they have to feed me. Right? And I would tell them, I come out on the street, the drums is there. Yes, that is one part. But where will I eat?
According to Peterson, 5 persons are in his household and will benefit from the items provided by the pantry. The names and dates of birth of those persons are also obtained during the initial call from the pantry program. For Tricia Aviles and her family of 8, they have all been jobless due to COVID-19.
In my household, about 8 away, I guess, or 7. Yeah. And so, yeah, really help a lot. Then since social, the relief thing, what I do, I don't get my text, so they help me already. So
that with the food.
That with the food come in really handy. I help because I know the work, and most of everybody in my house know the work. So it really It really come in handy. I heard the government say when everybody starts receiving their money for SSB, then the pantry thing will get less cost, since they could buy their own, you know. Yeah, I fully agree with that too, you know, because then we could support ourselves that way there since, you know.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
Stay tuned. We have much more news after the break. Subsistence farming continues to be a way of life among members of the indigenous communities in southern Belize. Amid the national state of emergency brought about by the coronavirus crisis, villagers in Toledo District are adhering to the regulations set out under the statutory instrument that governs the SOE. Earlier today, News 5 spoke with Greg Chuck, former executive director of the Sarstoon and Tamash Institute for Indigenous Management. According to Chuck, while those in the Maya communities are fully compliant, a balance is being struck in terms of their customary way of life.
The communities are adhering to the statutory instrument. They are, from discussion that I've had with few members of selected communities by phone, that they are making every attempt to adhere to the guidelines that have been established. In terms of the food security matter, at this time of the year, the community would be involved in reaping their corn their beans, and they would also be preparing fields for cultivation of corn and other crops that they normally farm or cultivate. And that is what they are doing. I have spoken to few people from various villages, and what I conclude from the conversations that I've had with them is that they continue to do that kind of activity, preparing their fields, reaping their corn, beans, and some have stated that they deliberately are involved in these activities because they recognize that if they miss this time of preparing their field or not harvest their corn, then there would be the high possibility that they may have food shortages on the long term, and the uncertainty that the COVID-19 has brought to the community. It seems that most community, if not all, have taken a deliberate step to continue with ensuring that they have food on the long term.
The South, Stand Creek, and Toledo districts have not reported any case of the coronavirus. But in several communities, residents who migrated to other parts of the country where they were employed within the tourism industry have since returned home. The challenge, however, is assimilation, since these persons are returning from locations where there was potentially a higher risk of exposure due to the nature of their jobs in the hospitality sector.
In terms of the subsistence agriculture that is practiced by majority of the Maya community, both at Chi and Mopan, and I think to a large extent some of the Garifuna community of Barranco, that is a traditional activity that they would have been engaged in anyway, you know? And it seems that they are doing that. So that would be across the board for all communities. As it relates to how they are attempting or they are addressing the threats of the COVID-19, it seems to be that it varies across the community. You may have seen on Facebook that when the issue took center stage at the national level, San Marcos was one of the villages that prompted a checkpoint and made attempt to not allow members of their village who may be working in Plasencia, Kikaka, San Pedro to come back into the village. While a significant majority of the community still continue to do subsistent agriculture, there is a significant number of communities that are now embedded in the tourism sector, in Plasencia, in Kikaka, and as far away as San Pedro.
As you heard earlier in the newscast, the Forest Department is facing a growing problem with fires across the country. And there may be regulations coming as early as next week to try to put a stop to this issue. Today we also got commentary from other experts in the field who shared why this issue is of grave concern.
This morning was extremely high particle count. What the sensor is doing, it's collecting particles from the air, and particles can be anything from industry, from dust, but in Belize, since we don't have a heavy industry, pollution is from smoke. Smoke is also particles. And particles, it's increasingly clear that that's harmful to your health. The reason why it was higher than usual this morning was probably because there's still fires, milpa fires that are in the area around Belmont Pond. They keep burning during the night, and if there's no wind, then that smoke doesn't go anywhere. So it is particularly heavy.